In today's episode, we are going to take a look at the various ways that war with Iran can impact response here at home by looking at the effects of cyber physical incident that focuses on critical infrastructures.
We're going to give some examples of the attacks and the effects that it might actually have on our operations.
And we're going to talk about ways to train and be prepared for these possibilities. Take a listen. You know the worst part about arriving at hazmat scenes?
Knowing that you haven't peed in about 3 hours and it's coming.
That'll do it, but also uncertainty about when you can do that. Actually, when you have no idea what's in the air?
And you're just assuming it's a chemical, right? Well, that doesn't cut it anymore. You need answers and you need them fast.
That's where the Explorer comes in, real-time chemical ID and quantification right in the field.
Yeah, and no more of this, we probably got something bad. It's going to tell you exactly what's there and exactly how much.
So you can set up your safety zones like an adult and not a rookie guessing where to put the tape.
Which means defendable, quantitative data in seconds, making decision-making a hell of a lot easier.
So no more waiting around for the answer, just solid life-saving intels.
Check them out check out the Explorer and stop guessing. Check them out at 908devices.com. But you know what stresses me out for hazmat calls?
The part where everybody stands around suddenly it smells like mown hay.
Yes, exactly, right? That's all guessing. There's no tactics in that.
And that's why Teledyne FLIR Defense built detection tools so we can stop doing that. They're real sensors for real CBRNE threats.
And they've been around for over 30 years, helping us, the first responder, know exactly what we're dealing with.
Hazmat, Homeland Security, public safety, ugly scenes, and clear answers.
The more you know, the smarter you can operate.
So check out Teledyne FLIR Defense, any threat, anywhere, without mysteries.
And of course, as we promised, we are always looking into solutions for the battery fires. And while many companies have presented their products to us, there has been one noteworthy one because of its ability to extinguish the lithium-ion battery fires. But it's not just a one-trick pony. It works on all types of classes of fires. It prevents the fire from spreading, and it keeps the lithium-ion battery from reigniting.
And before that guy with the keyboard warrior type hat starts caps locking asking for proof, the links are going to be in the show notes below for the UL Class A and B, as well as the BSI for 10 categories, including lithium-ion batteries.
And despite what my neighborhood thinks of me, we have, in fact, been field testing these, more than likely in our backyard, but that's besides the point. And I have to tell you, we're actually pretty impressed with the results. Now, we always suggest that you do your own myth busting. What's nice about this product is it's available in a variety of different options, so it's going to integrate into your current process. Check them out at Fire Suppression Solutions or click on the link in the show notes.
We are back.
Good morning, everybody out there. And in case you've been under a rock, we have been in the midst of a little bit of regime change, and we thought it might be best to kind of brush off the old WMD catalog and take a look at some of the ways in which some things may be different today than they were years ago, with a major focus on the first thing that we have up on our plate. Does that sound like a fun couple hours, Bob?
Sounds like a plan, like a plan for me.
All right. So I think one of the biggest issues that we face today that we didn't face maybe 20 years ago is the potential for cyber infrastructure attacks. And while off the top of our head, this may seem like not a big deal, like, oh, what are we going to lose our water? The fact is that we can lose a lot more than that, and many different ways in which these events can actually impact just the beginning, right? And as we go through, Iran remains a serious cyber threat to the United States network. There's no doubt about it. Whether you want to think it's Russia, whether you want to think it's China, all these actors are all playing on the same page. So the U.S. intelligence has specifically warned that Iranian cyber capabilities can threaten the American systems. CISA and partners also have issued multiple warnings, like the one on June 30th about infrastructure vigilance against Iranian-sponsored and affiliate cyber activities.
Now, when you think about it from a hazmat team perspective, it's not like like a robot's going to kick over a drum or anything like that. But
my Roomba's going to attack me.
Yeah, no, but it's not going to be like maximum overdrive or something like that. That's a dated term. But what we're talking about is maybe releases that may be caused by the controls, right? Because you got to think there's so much automation, pneumatic and hydraulic and servos and all these things that would control our conventional stuff like water and wastewater and overfeeds and containment. How about ammonia or chlorine process, pressure vessels, tank overfills? You can get a ton of stuff, or even monitoring equipment that could be compromised.
Yeah, it's weird. You kind of think about it. You go through this list, and at first you start off and you're like, okay, like what's the most that it could affect me as a first responder? And obviously we'll talk about communications and stuff like that. But it's really interesting how the scene can be set up with cyber attacks so that we're going on things that have been caused by the cyber attacks, right? Like a hazardous materials released caused by a process manipulation. So basically, there was a cyber attack on a factory, and they get in there and they manipulate the industrial control systems to create some kind of a release. So you could be looking at valves opening remotely, like chlorine, ammonia, LPG, any kind of liquids, acids, anything along those lines, right? Overfeed. In the let's say we had a water treatment system, right, and we're going to pump it full of whatever the chemicals are. Say it's chlorine, say it's sodium hypochlorite. Like, we get this sudden mass dump into what should have been a relatively stable system. We can remotely disable refrigeration systems. So if we had an ammonia plant go down, or we had some kind of a process that relied on that cold temperatures, we could eliminate them. That could potentially be a huge risk as we go in. Or what about something as simple as like the valve or the switch that shuts off a tank farm from becoming overfilled? What if that was able to get overridden?
Right, that would operationally impact us. And what we would need to think about a little bit differently is now that if you're going to be going into these types of things, there could be unexpected toxic gas plumes. Like, you'd say, well, why isn't the alarm going on? Because they defeated the alarm. It's possible. The source of the leak may not match where you would typically figure it was going to come out in a normal plant operation. So they could, it might come out the side of the building. There's like an overpressurization valve or something like that. But these releases can, or may, we'll say may, continue remotely even after the valves are closed.
So what are some of the things that we can work on to be able to prepare for something like this? Any industry that you have in your area, you should be in communication with them. You should understand the process systems awareness. And it's not like we're going in there to be like, hey, I want to learn this system, right? I need to be a master at this, fracking installation. But what you want to do is start to create that familiarity with the liaison and the plant engineers. You want to build that working relationship because they're going to become your subject matter experts when the shit hits the fan. We also want to be able to identify manual isolation points. So where can I go in and turn this off that may not be connected to a systems or a computer or something that could easily be hacked?
Yeah, like a good old-fashioned valve or an OS&Y yoke or something like that. So
just give me something to turn, damn it.
Yeah, so the attackers are going to, they're going to go for automation pieces, right? So these systems, they might be the emergency shutdown system. There are amazing computer systems hooked up to these valves that do things in sequence. Like, you can imagine if you shut the wrong valve in the wrong sequence, you would have a problem. Well, they can set them up to have the problem. Pressure relief controls, modifying it. If it's normally supposed to pop off at 220 pounds, they could raise it up to 360, overwhelming that container. Gas detection. These are pre-wired, pre-plumbed into places, either defeating them, burning them out, turning them off, making it look like it's 0 where it's really 1,000. You can have fire suppression systems, tank level alarms, right? A lot of these things, even in like the gasoline trucks at 406, they use these optical eyes in the manhole cover.
Manway.
Yeah, the manway, right? And they are kind of sending down a visual, like a laser that sees the distance. Well, you just reset it to 0, and then it just comes right at the top.
You know, we often will walk into a scene and we really do get blinders because we're very used to the idea of there was a specific incident that happened. You know, if it's in industry, usually we're like, okay, this was an accident. So we think of it being very isolated, but we actually have to walk into a situation like this with our head on a swivel because the equipment may appear just fine and then all of a sudden fail, indicating that there's control behind the equipment that doesn't have to do with damaged valves, a damaged this, something that happened in an accident. We have the potential for an increased explosion because somebody could take control of the process and mix chemicals that aren't supposed to be together. And we have to be very careful in this situation not to not to trust automated shutdown systems.
Yeah, that's a major thing of my takeaway is that, assume that the safeties are unreliable. Like, assume everything that is not under your direct control, like the meters in your hand are probably going to be moderately reliable. Well, they're good. I would say they're reliable, right? But you're going to want to increase your monitoring capabilities. You're going to want to definitely pair up 2 in, 2 out kind of thing, because things are going to be a little different than normal. And our exclusion zones, I would just get them bigger. How much bigger? I don't know, bigger. Maybe 25%, 50% if you think so. It's your call, but I would definitely make it a little wider.
Well, I guess for like an exclusion zone, I would take whatever my largest release could be from the system, and that's what I would go off of, right? Because let's say you're in there working, and then all of a sudden, whoever's on the other end controlling everything they figure out how to get something wide open. So whatever your largest potential release is, that's kind of what I would go with. And you kind of mentioned something before about trusting your meters, and you chuckled a little at that. And false sensor data is a very, very real thing. In fact, and I won't give away any names or companies or anything like that, but we teach with a guy whose primary job is to find the weaknesses within Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capable meters because they can so easily be hacked into, which means that if you have a meter that connects to the internet and does all those things, we have the ability to have that hacked into, and our sensor and our data information give basically false readings. So you're walking in there with a meter that you think is calibrated correctly, and it picks up no chlorine when there is chlorine, or chlorine when there isn't chlorine, or PID where there isn't, or you get radiation readings that are way out of whack. We can absolutely have an attack on the equipment that we're bringing in with us, and the equipment that is in the place can also be considered under attack.
Yeah, and that would impact us because you very well might have the control room is telling you this is the status, and then your field observations are completely different. Or you may have people like operators that are over the radio maybe saying, hey, I got a reading of this, and they are unknowingly giving you incorrect information that you're using tactically. Or even like hazmat modeling, right? If we do our Aloha, our Marplot, all that other stuff, your Ceres, whatever, you could be doing it wrong based upon their telemetry.
So this is where we start to develop the skills of independent monitoring, right? And we like this to bring our own stuff into things anyway. But now we want to think one step ahead. If we're getting wonky readings, maybe it's time to call in the next hazmat team. Like bring in a neighboring department and see if the technologies are matching the answers. Because the possibility of both, the factory, your department, and a neighboring department all being under the same control is pretty minimum. So we want to kind of get back to this idea of verify with different pieces of equipment, different technologies, and different methods if you have them. Your portable gas detection that doesn't connect to the internet is at this point going to be your most reliable source of information.
And this is kind of redundant, but the pumps, the valves, the motors, all that stuff, they can overspin pumps. They can over time them. They can close cooling water systems. You could cycle equipment over and over and over, causing problems.
Yeah, so how would something like that impact our incident, right? We have things that are changing unexpectedly. In hazmat, we often sit around and we try to predict behavior. Well, we can't predict behavior when somebody can just open up a switch randomly. However, we can prepare for a worst case scenario while we're on scene and potentially under this kind of cyber attack or control. Everything you may do, and you may be like, hey, we got this valve isolated, we did this, we stopped the leak, and then all of a sudden it comes back because you didn't realize it was under a remote capability. Your fire suppressions may be completely shut off, meaning that if an incident does grow, you won't have the ability to control it through the facilities that currently exist. So the thought process is, how do we work around all that?
Yeah, I mean, just like when you go to a residential place and they chain the OSNY in the open position, so like, so vandalism doesn't happen and somebody shut off the sprinkler. If I was in one of these situations where things weren't going right, I would probably chain the OSNYs that weren't, like the valvings. I would probably mechanically make sure they can't creep close with like a screw drive or something like that. But going to the old manual lockout tagout is going to be a big deal, and then making sure everybody knows about those isolation systems and who the engineers are and etc.
Now, what about multiple attacks? If you're going to hit an area, why would you not be able to hit multiple facilities at the same time? Especially if those facilities are within the same infrastructure. So, example, quite often you'll have a DuPont plant, and that DuPont plant will have multiple other DuPont plants really close by it. There's a possibility they're all under that same network. So now you have multiple incidents happening at the same location at the same time. That's not even talking about the possibility of municipal utilities being hit at the same time and digging into your resources.
Yeah, that's exactly what it comes down to, is like your mutual aid's going to get stretched. I don't think it's going to, well, I don't want to say it's not going to defeat us. I'm assuming there is a possibility for that kind of thing, but, dispatch is going to be overwhelmed, not defeated, but your resource prioritization you're going to have to triage these things out as quick as possible. And that is a skill that you need to practice. A great way to practice a skill like this would be simulating going to a rail incident where you have a whole bunch of different releases of different chemicals, and you have to prioritize which one is going to be the bad one, which one's going to be the good one. Making sure that you're in contact with all your regional assets. You know how to get a hold of them. You guys are familiar with each other. Are they state assets? Are they federal assets? Where are things coming from? Where is equipment that I might need in excess? Today's episode is brought to you by Rigaku Analytical Devices, who are the folks who have been perfecting 1064 nanometer Raman, probably longer than some of you guys have been doing hazmat. They just launched their fourth generation handheld analyzer, the Icon X, built specifically for real-world hazmat teams to deal with real-world everyday stuff. I'm talking like dirty powders, mixed materials, dyes, colors, all the things that generally throw our instruments into a temper tantrum. And the 1064 nanometer laser means reduced fluorescence, so you get fast, reliable chemical ID in under a minute instead of staring at that blank screen wondering what went wrong. We're not talking about an upgrade here. This is a totally new platform with its own entirely new toolbox. It supports new accessories, including standoff analyzers, so you can get answers without having to get too close. And if you want an analyzer that's been evolving right alongside the hazmat world, check out Rigaku's newest Raman at rigakuanalytical.com. You know what I love about the city? People walking around tweakers like they don't even exist. My new fave is the e-scooter gangs. Ooh, yeah, because nothing screams like a moped with a battery that's about to go nuclear. Right, that's where Obexian FR saves the day. It's lightweight, mobile-friendly, and designed for first responders because the last thing we need is extra weight when things are heating up. And it's third-party tested to lower toxic gases below the ideal H levels.
which means you could actually breathe in case you get your face piece lodged off while doing a scooter fire.
And if you need more, Obexian FR comes by the pallet or in certified poly drum kits.
Which is perfect when you go on that run and you're like, holy crap, we're going to need a lot of this.
So protect your team and your lungs. To learn more, go to thehazmatguys.dgeo.com. That's thehazmatguys.dgeo.com. All right. Wow. Good stuff.
Yeah. I would say, loss of power, Bob. What do you think we're doing with loss of power?
So that's going to be probably a widespread outages because you're going to have like hospitals going down, generators, ventilation system, fire pumps, elevators. That's going to be another one. You're going to have traffic, gridlock, which would definitely affect our responses.
And we've seen how electricity can impact our hazmat response. Just look at any of the massive hurricanes that have hit over the past 5 years. The top one that I can think off the top of my head from that one you were on in Houston is a chemical refrigeration failure, right? Yep. Like you have the potential for a massive detonation. Industry processes becoming unstable because electricity cut out right at the moment where they needed to stir or needed to mix or needed to pump something off. You could even have a loss of the containment system because something happens, a chemical goes into a runaway, there's a positive feedback cycle, and stuff is lost. So, there is a lot to be said for loss of power, especially in an industry or even out in the field. Yeah. Our communication system is something that can very easily be hacked into. It's, whether we're talking about just basic dispatch, whether we're talking about phone, whether we're talking about our airwaves being eliminated, like our Wi-Fi. And this can have a drastic effect on a lot of different systems. Our CAD, which is our computer dispatch system, the 911 centers, just the radios that we use, the cell phone towers that we all rely on to be able to do our resource now is gone. How do we effectively operate without the ability to do resource?
That's going to delay, dispatch and mapping and pre-plans and units responding without information.
Yeah. So what do we need to do to be able to start to combat this? Well, we need to be able to figure out how to operate efficiently without radio communication. We need proper backup procedures in place so we kind of know what to expect without having to communicate them. Manual accountability. We need to be able to look stuff up on those old ass books that probably haven't been opened up in your rig in about 30 years. If you're lucky, you've got information stored locally on your laptop and you can access them. But think about that. What would you do if all communication just shit the bed?
Now, another way that they can try to hit us, and again, we've been working hard, I think, as a country. Not just a country, but I think globally to harden these things. But water infrastructure is another one where you could have, contamination alarms being triggered, pump shutdowns, or overpressurization, underpressurization, adding more chlorine or fluoride to the thing more than you're supposed to.
Now, you turn around and you're like, okay, fine. Like, so the water's no good. Well, that couples any kind of, if you have a hazmat run and then you have a public health emergency on top of it, you have just made everything drastically more difficult, especially if your members are part of that public health emergency. Mass exposure could be a concern, and our sampling operations could be drastically reduced or thrown out of whack, especially if things are leaking or, we're just, it's bad. Yeah, I mean, think about it, right? Like, what are your operational impacts if the water system? I don't even think we've really tried to focus on how we would operate. The fire department alone, what do you got? 500 gallons. Like, if that's all you're able to get, what are you doing? How are you looking to protect yourself against this?
Another one is us, right? What if we are the potential target, right? They might intentionally trigger incidents during a response, like let's say restarting equipment while we're operating or something. Like, we do the right thing. We shut down, we close the door, we open the door, and there is now a secondary release, or the door locks with magnetics or whatever it is, and that overpressurization, whether it's mechanical or chemical or whatever, dare I say, an explosion or something like that.
And that is going to absolutely increase our risk. If somebody's actively going for us, then they are going to know exactly when to push the button for the next event. So, we used to talk about explosives with secondary devices. Well, now our secondary devices don't have to be explosive. They could be remote controlled, anything that is out there.